And we're live. What's shaking? Killers. Today is October 2nd, 2024. And going into the DePIN overview. Let's see if I managed to forget one of the important things here so that I can't see the comments. I'll see if I can fix that real quick. Let's see. What is shaking today? So top of the news here, I want to do, what's up, Derek? What's up, Travis? I want to do like a quick overview of DePIN super fast. Is that I'm just seeing, Max and I are seeing DePIN projects. The whole space is starting to really speed up. And I think what's going to happen, oh, here comes Joey. What may happen in the next couple of months is we are just going to see, let me see if I can bring in here, Joey. Magic. Cool. What's up, dog?
Yo, good morning.
All right. It's saying that I can't stream me. Oh, that's fine. I was just talking about the whole state of DePIN, Joey, and saying that what I'm seeing is that the whole thing is starting to really accelerate. And what we're seeing is that folks who haven't been building the whole time are going to start to get left behind. And also folks who are like hitting obstacles that they may not have seen before. That are like, oh yeah, this is weird. Those guys are probably going to they're going to miss an opportunity. So interesting to see that that whole thing going down, but also super psyched to see what's going on in the space. Okay, let's see if we can do the news in under 15 minutes. I know you've got some big stuff that we'll pause for a minute on, but I'll start with Onocoy. So Max and I have been working with Onocoy. We're working on this DePIN-wide Proof of Location with other projects. So we've got a couple calls with other projects, I think this week and next week. And the idea there is to say, hey, all of us DePIN projects have different ways of proving location, whether it's LoRaWAN or Wi-Fi or GPS or Bluetooth or whatever. We think it's pretty important that one of the projects, and ideally a location-centric project like Onocoy, say, hey, we'll help kind of be the centering, focusing point for this. But if we can get every project to contribute basically their location data, and then share it with other projects, and however the incentives work on that, I'm going to leave that part up to Max. And that may be that different projects pay in their tokens for kind of proof of location, but that we start to see something that is really robust and goes beyond what any single project can do. So that's something Onocoy is doing. They're also doing, that's like the big global news, their local news. They're doing a giveaway to the CV Summit, which is a Swiss blockchain event. And if you engage with their campaign on Twitter, you earn BONO. That's kind of cool. It's in Switzerland, so it's very Swiss. It's like the size of my head, which is pretty big, but still small for a country. Anyone turned on their Sepolia faucet for testing. So if you want to check that out, there's a link down in the description, faucet.anyone.io. And there's been a ton of videos, including some of mine that have come out on how to use Anyone, where anyone can use Anyone. So whether you got a Mac, Windows, Raspberry Pi, whatever, super easy, basically a one-click install at this point. It's still a little bit geeky, so I wouldn't say that my mom or dad could do it. But anyone watching this, you can certainly, if you can copy and paste and use the internet in general, you can do that. Threefold had a network. So Florian, one of the co-founders, gave a speech at the network state. That was pretty cool. And I thought the big thing there was the privacy is power, and we need to own our digital life and our data. And they're building the way that you can do that in a pretty interesting, and I think like the thing I like about it is like it's a super hardcore way. Is they're saying, hey, we're gonna do this from the ground up, from bare metal, and build our own OS, et cetera, et cetera. So cool stuff there. All right, Helium news, Joey. The IoT working group is now, I can't say that they're paid, the members are paid, but they certainly have a budget to work with. So that's a big deal.
Yes. I mean, I guess it's kind of up to the group and the community if they get paid. But yeah, so backstory, right? The IoT network has an emission of tokens that goes to an operations fund that has been administrated by the foundation. But it's always sort of been the intent that we figure out how to like get it in the hands of the community.
Yep.
And so doing this through the working group made a lot of sense. There's some folks in the working group raised it, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good reminder. So we pulled it together. Scott, to his credit, figured out a way to make this happen. And so basically, yeah, 10% of this overall pool that is sitting today is now available for the working group members to figure out how to like properly allocate.
Yeah, I'd be, if I was in the working group, I'd be allocating a portion of that to myself. I was thinking about this morning, is that I've never met a government official that works for free. They're certainly low paid. Like it's not like a high paying job, but it's like,
It,
yeah,
and it's going to be a lot of work too.
yeah,
And so I think as the working group starts to realize that, it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to administrate these, 4 grants or whatever that we decide to, dive in on. And we're going to have check-ins. We got to make sure it's written up right. We've got to report it back to the community. Like all that stuff is very much work,
yeah.
um, and very time consuming.
And we can cruise back. We can cruise back to the helium stuff. I'm seeing in the comments, Travis is saying that was not the intention of what we did there. No, I know that was not your intention, Travis, but certainly as someone on the outside looking in and on someone who's worked both paid and for free for helium, I think it's way better to work paid. I think that's just the deal. And Jeremy, your local city council is probably unpaid, and they're definitely underpaid. Yeah, I think that's not the main point, but we can come back to it because we've got a bunch of other deep in news to burn through, including the USC Athletics partnership that Helium Mobile announced. So pretty exciting stuff there to see just deep in getting out in the world. It goes back to the point at the top of the show, like, hey, the whole thing's going to speed up. And whether you're Helium or the project that we haven't heard about yet that's still building in stealth, if you don't start moving super fast and building super hard, you're going to miss the majority of the wave. And it will seem for a long while like you actually caught it, but what's happening is you're on the high side of and going back down, is what I think. Let's see, the amended V3 proposal, 3.0.1. Basically, the big changes were there's no change to tokens, no change to max supply. There's an HST trade for HNT. We can talk about this later. Staking looks like it's easier and it's actually profitable this time instead of just staking in kind of I'm a believer, which we all did when it started, but I think folks got disillusioned with that. Let's see, HIP 132 scaling mobile mappers. So you burn $5 a mobile to map for 30 days on your phone. I don't know that that's going to work super well. I don't see that being super persuasive for non-crypto folks, but again, we can come back and talk about that. I think the last piece of big news I got on the Helium side is the brownfield deployment, and the marketing company has to come up with a fucking better name than brownfield, because I always think of toilets and shit, when it's actually like super good news in that anyone running a Ubiquiti router can now run Helium data through their router, and I'll work on that today because I certainly run those things. Okay, Hivemapper announced their San Francisco event, December 2024, and the B is shipping out to testers. I'm not one of those testers. If you are a tester and you want to come talk about it on the show, I'd love to have you on. I'm always excited to see what goes on with new hardware. DIMO's got a million pieces of news. I think the big one is their LTE R1 was announced. They've got new hardware. They're shipping mid-December. I think we're seeing with all of these projects, whether it's DIMO or Hivemapper or Wingbits or whatever, like it just takes time to ship hardware. So I always expect when these people announce their hardware and they announce their shipping date, it's like multiply that by 1.5, however that makes sense to you.
And Hivemapper, I'll just say, has it extra hard because of the high requirements that they've set on precision on those things. Like they fight every little bit of RF interference inside of that thing. So they've worked really hard to get that where it is.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see, Ed, I want to hear something about Capitol Hill today. Yeah, that's down at the bottom after all the deep in news. And you guys are on the chat. Cool. Let's see. Wingbits, they did speaking of delays, pre-order delay for their hardware with GEODNET. They're doing a hardware giveaway in the meantime. So I guess 3 people will get the free version early, which is, yeah, cool. That's good to see. Let's see. Spexi is moving into Miami. They've got about $20,000 worth of Spexigons they're putting up there. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like these are all just signals that, look, DePIN is accelerating. It's going faster and faster. We're seeing it actually enter into the real world.
Tell me how that one works. You said they put $20,000 of Spexigons. Are these drones? Is this like boosted hexes?
No,
What's the
and I
idea
probably
there?
should use my fancy graphics. I haven't used them at all because I forgot about them and I was so excited. Okay. Now we're talking about Spexi. Shit. Let's see. So Spexi, you get a drone and you can fly over hexagons that they call Spexigons. I forget what size they are. They're probably like Res 11s or 10s or something. Might be Res 8s. And for each Res 8, you fly over and provide imagery for. And I think this is true. I haven't looked that deeply into it. You get paid in their tokens. And so each of those hexes, I think, is worth $8. And I just did the fast math and multiplied the number of tokens by the the number of Spexigons they put out by $8 and came up with the 20 grand. I think it's like 18,500 or something like that. But and then when you map it, obviously your imagery is contributed to the thing, to the general pool. They aggregate that and resell that to customers. So pretty straightforward. I did want to talk. I'm going to see if I can get Amir on here. He's super hard to get down for these smaller shows. Seems like he's on the bigger shows, but I want to talk to him about one of his things on Twitter the other day. Was like, hey, you should show. It should come down to what is it? You need to show how much revenue the project is generating. I was like, fuck, man, I'm a believer in Helium, but Helium didn't generate any revenue for the first couple of years. Like, I like that as a metric, but I think that's more of like a pissing contest with another project than an actual useful thing. And he's usually
I,
only doing useful things.
I think there's a distinction though. Like we were showing the revenue, we weren't hiding it, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't a lot of revenue, but
yeah,
like it's always been there. So,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
yeah.
Fair point. I think it seemed from my brief reading of it that his thing is like, hey, you got to be showing a lot of revenue. But maybe I misread it. That's entirely
Well, I
possible.
think he might be now because there is a lot of revenue. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I take the other angle of it, which is like, show the utility side,
Yeah.
no matter what scale.
Let's see. Sourceful is opening up their API for beta testing. The link is down in the description on this. WeatherXM announced their solar obstacle detector and their GPS penalty adjustment. The penalty adjustment is actually in favor of the community, so it's not as strict as it was. I think WeatherXM is doing some interesting anti-gaming stuff coming up. They haven't talked a ton about the specifics of it. I've been talking to them a little bit on the back end. We just released over at Golden Hawks their anti-gaming primer. And so as part of gathering information for that article, we talked to the WeatherXM folks, talked to Manos. And so pretty neat to see that. And we did that with Matthew Patrick, Star Watcher, who worked for Helium, was their chief data scientist. So that was a super fun thing to get to chat with him about. Let's see, Frodobots. I'm just bringing up their breakpoint speech. I don't think I had it last time, but he's doing this contest with AI versus humanity. So AI is going to be driving 5 of their Frodobots, and the top human gamers are going to be driving the other 5, and they'll figure out a race course that these guys can do, and we'll see which is better. I think that's always it's always good to go up against the robots to see how we're doing. And then let's see, we got some time here. Wi-Fi Daba, they did their flash sale for NFTs. It was just closing as I wrote the note yesterday, so it's closed by now. They're doing an AMA on X Spaces at 1 p.m. today, so in 4 hours. So if you want to go talk to Wi-Fi Daba, they'll be on the X, on the Twitters. And then Silencio is doing quizzes on noise and silence to see how much you know about how the whole thing works, and you can earn Discord roles for getting a C grade, 75% or more. So kind of cool. The bar is not super high there. You just got to know enough to be good. And then the last thing I've got on DePIN specific things before I get to media is Huddle O1 has been teasing node sales. I see they're coming out. They're going to be selling the media nodes pretty soon. That's pretty cool. Let's see. CoinDesk did an op-ed piece on DePIN. So again, going back to like, hey, more and more people are going to learn about DePIN. It's going to start with the greater crypto world. And instead of you meet someone at a Bitcoin conference and they're like, I've never heard of DePIN, it'll start now to be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. And they'll, say some fucking project you've probably never heard of. And that may or may not be a DePIN, but at least they've heard of the word. Super cool to see CoinDesk doing that. And then Ed's point earlier, this is the last thing that I've got, is Blockchain Association is presenting on Capitol Hill today. And they're working with Helium, Hivemapper, GEODNET, and a couple others to talk to the United States government and tell them that crypto is actually real. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's it, dude. 13 minutes and 12 seconds. We did the
Oh, you're early.
news. Yeah, I finally
That's too
got
fast.
it in time. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
catch up on the chats now. So in the meantime, let's see. We're streaming on X. It's streaming on Twitch. I think I had 1 viewer on Twitch last time. So at some point I'll be big on Twitch, but probably not. And then it was streaming on LinkedIn, but I think I broke the integration or something. So that's it. Let's see. Can I get a $5 a month plan for being a USC alumni from 619? I don't think they're offering that, but that's funny.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
No, you might as well, right? Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
you were a USC alum. That's cool.
It's pretty cool to see them sort of scaling this like university program. It sounds like there was some good success when they did this in Florida. So hopefully we
Yeah,
see the same for LA.
yeah. Let's see. Forbes ran an article about revenue. I'm just catching up on the chat here. Oh, and Keenan says we're listening. Okay, Keenan. So let's get with the USC alumni team and see if we can get them a $5 plan. Although I feel like USC alumni probably don't need a $5 a month plan. I feel like that's a pretty rich school, and dollars don't make, at least at that level, don't make a ton of difference to them. Maybe I'm just being whatever the mean word for overgeneralizing is. So let's see. I still don't get if CBRS is dead or not. So I've been, and I got to figure out a better way to do these comments. this brings up an interesting thing, Joey, is I've been going back to the off-grid thing. So last week, Germ and I got on with Amateur Jade Hair, which is the big mountain hotspot I put up years and years ago. And it suddenly came back online. It got offline in January, and then it just popped back online in August. And I hadn't made the time to go out there and see what's going on. I was like, it'll work or it won't. And we got on there, and in the meantime, I think it's hip 73, Neil's hip. That is the race to witnesses, like the first 14 witnesses get the witnessing IoT the tokens. And it gets beat every time because the latency on that is like 180 to 250 milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
So it sees tons and tons of different hotspots because it is up at 3,000 feet on top of a mountain. It sees pretty much all of San Diego, at least everything west and south of El Cajon Mountain, which is pretty high. It was also seeing a ton of packets, but because the latency was so high, it couldn't report those packets in time, and so it would get an error that basically said, hey, we got the packet, but it's too late, and so someone else already bought it, or it was somehow processed some other way. And I was like, motherfucker, I put a lot of goddamn time in making that thing awesome, and it's seeing all these packets, and some jackass is beating me, and I don't like that. So I'm starting to hunt down latency, and I think I've got this. So it's on a Cradlepoint IBR 650C modem right now, which is like an industrial modem for IoT stuff. So they don't really care about latency that much. And then it has just the paddle antennas that are connected to that modem. So Omni antennas, the tiny little things. We all probably have something on our desk that looks like them, like a Wi-Fi looking antenna. I was like, oh, if I got a modem that is a little bit more modern and set up for this, and then I got a badass antenna and pointed it directly at the Band 41 T-Mobile tower that's 8 kilometers due almost south, I wonder if I can get better latency. And so that looks like that's going to cost about $1,000, and then all the effort of going out and putting it up. It was like, I'm willing to do that. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right modem and the right antenna. And then I think if I get the latency down, the most reasonable goal to aim for is 30 milliseconds, which still may not be fast enough. I may need to be like 10 or less. But I'd rather do the best job that I can do than just like let it sit there and then see what happens. And then I think I'll put a couple other projects on there that also will benefit from better latency, although I don't think it'll matter that much now. So that's my like Helium off-grid plan this month.
Yeah, I'm kind of racking my brain for like where you could like eke out that performance, but I don't know. I like the strategy. I'd be curious if it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, Germ and I went through it. There's not a lot you can do between the miner and the packet forwarder. So the packet forwarder is a thing out on the mountain. I could put the miner and the packet forwarder out there, but that saves like 2 milliseconds. Like it's not enough that I thought that it was worth it. And I always liked having those things separate so that if some jackass comes along and smashes it with those, because they're DIYs, which will confuse folks who are relatively new to Helium, it wouldn't matter that much. I just put on something else, but I'd rather just have a packet forwarder that I can be like, oh yeah, they smashed that thing. I can easily put another Raspberry Pi on there, set that up as a PF, and then we're good.
Yeah. I always just love being able to like go look at the logs for the miner side and see if it's getting stuff too.
Yep. Oh, and I was going to say, I'm also going to put that on a Helium SIM card because that's $20 a month. And that was always the other big thing with off grids was that it was just too expensive to have stuff out there. But if I can have it $20 a month, I think I can manage that. I can justify that. And then if I've got a couple projects on that same pole, I could do that. So,
Yeah. Well, and then I think you kicked into this with like CBRS. So are you thinking to point a CBRS radio out that direction?
I don't think that's how, like from my extensive discussions with ChatGPT, I don't think that those radios are the ones that I want. I don't think. I think it's just going to be because I'm not trying to rebroadcast Wi-Fi and I'm not trying to broadcast a CBRS signal. I'm trying to connect to a tower that's 8
That's already
kilometers
there.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I mean, I'm not seeing as I search around on the interwebs that there are a ton of folks looking for the same thing that I'm looking for. Most of the information I'm finding on routers like this, where it's like people traveling around and trying to get a good cell signal, are the folks living in vans doing the van life thing. And so they set up a router in their van and an antenna, and they point the radio at the Sorry, they point the antenna at the nearest cell tower, and that's how they get it. But there's nothing that's like, oh, I'm just going to leave this in a place that I can find that's not for, professionals where I can understand it. So
Cool.
interesting thing. Let's see. Ed Ballou, I'm excited for the Wingbits GeoDNet collab. He wants one for the tower. Yep, just make sure you don't fall off the tower again, Ed. That was that was a good little clickbait and tease, and I'm glad that you're okay.
Yeah.
And then on this thing, so the comments aren't consolidated. So if you're watching this on X or LinkedIn when I get it working, or Twitch, I'm not going to see any comments that you make. I'll only see the comments on the YouTubes. So let's see what else. What else is going on, Joey? Do you want to go back and talk about this working group business?
Well, let's see. There's working group business. There's the brownfield,
Oh, the brownfield thing.
or
Yeah.
as I, the marketing side, I've been calling it bring your own fleet, or
Okay.
bring your own APs, or
I
like,
like that better.
so we're working toward it.
So
Um,
I haven't. I mean, I looked at that and I saw that they said, "Hey, you can use Ubiquiti." I've got at the
mhm,
Paleo Treats office. I've got a Ubiquiti setup. So I've got the whatever the access point and this router and the switch. But I've also got an indoor and an outdoor Helium hotspot. I'm
mhm.
assuming that there's no reason for me to turn on and make that a brownfield deployment on the Ubiquiti because I've already got Helium there. Or am I missing something?
Uh, if your coverage from your, Helium mobile hotspots, the HMHs, are covering everything that your Ubiquiti stuff covers, you probably don't need to do it.
Right.
The performance of the Ubiquiti hardware is great, as we know. If you've ever
Yep.
used it, it's
It's
pretty
easy to.
fantastic stuff. Um, uh, but the greenfield, as it were, the Helium hardware is going to do more stuff for the network. So it does the heartbeats, it does the speed tests. Um, and those things aren't coming in from the brownfield side. So it does tell the network, the protocol, a little bit more about the deployed network, and it makes it easier for carriers to sort of jump in and leverage that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and the brownfield today, I guess, is probably worth noting. Like, it's not going to do rewards, it's not going to do carrier offload. It's Helium mobile subs only, so it's very much in like an alpha stage. None of this stuff's on chain yet. That's coming soon.
Okay.
But it is working, which is a really cool thing. Like, I turned it on last night. My phone popped right onto it.
Oh, badass.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've been making like a couple tweets about the Passpoint thing. So it means like I noticed the phone at the shop, which is on a Helium plan, will switch back and forth between the Helium mobile
Hmm.
indoor hotspot and then the AP, the Ubiquiti AP that is basically directly above the phone. And I'm always
Hmm.
switching it back to Helium mobile because I want to run data through it. And I've tried to forget the AP a bunch of times, but the phone is beating me on that. It just remembers AP and switches back to it. So it
Yeah,
seems like it's working pretty well, but yeah, interesting to.
yeah. And that so that's kind of the priority design, right? Like, your phone should always use the thing that it knows the best, and that's going to be like, you know, in most cases, your home Wi-Fi, your friend's Wi-Fi, or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that extra layer sits right between that Wi-Fi and then all the other carrier stuff. So it prioritizes that.
yeah, yeah. No, it's gonna be a cool thing to see for folks. And I'm curious about this. Is at what point does it get so big that it stops being such like a draw for folks to come in? I think Helium is well past that right now. It's like, oh, turn on your Ubiquiti and you're going to make X dollars a week in tokens. Like, I don't think that is ever going to be that persuasive. It'll always be like, turn on your
Well,
Ubiquiti and make it easier, and you'll make something at some point.
well,
Or am I missing
so
something
a
here?
couple of things on that. Um, so I kind of look at this as like the Wi-Fi we should have always had, right? Like,
Okay.
Wi-Fi for us for the last 20 years has been private networks. You don't
Yep.
share it with your friends. You're told that they're going to sneak in and steal your files, like if you
Fuckers. Yeah.
open your networks, right? Like,
And my
close it,
snaky friends. Yeah.
yeah, it's this like sort of, it's almost like a fear-mongering thing. But
Yep.
the Wi-Fi Alliance has built this protocol now where you can trust the, randos to come onto your network, and they're not going to like see your other devices and all that other kind of stuff. And so now you're in this world where you can very much have a ubiquitous share system for Wi-Fi. You become your own cell tower.
Yeah.
Um, and so that in and of itself is really cool. And that's why I've just kind of been tweeting about Passpoint. Like this is a really cool way to approach Wi-Fi. Beyond that, the carrier offload rewards. Actually, no, I'm not going to go into that yet. When I was putting together these docs, I Googled Passpoint Ubiquity just to kind of see what stuff was out there. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that hit was a post on Reddit from a month ago where this guy was configuring a Passpoint for carrier offload through some third-party service. He was not going to get paid for it. He was actually paying $40 a month in order to kill the dead zone in his house with his Ubiquity hardware. To make this thing work.
Yeah.
And so we've like already completely turned that on its head, right? Now you're not going to pay $40 a month. You're going to get paid for whatever you're doing for the work from the carriers.
Yep.
And you cover all those dead zones. And so, yeah, taking that and pushing that into what are the offload rewards looking like? In high traffic areas, it's very different than residential. Some carriers don't care about residential. They're like, we've already got you covered. Why would we go activate carrier
Yep.
offload if it's just like one dude? In the high traffic areas, we're seeing pretty significant, like, because it's 50 cents a gigabyte that's getting rewarded to the gateway host. It's turning out to be a pretty significant amount. Actually, I've got some numbers. Let me see if I can get those real quick.
Hmm.
I'm not going to do it off the top of my head here
So
instead of.
is there any, I'm just thinking of this because we don't have a specifically high traffic place, but it'd be high traffic enough. I wonder if I should just turn on my Ubiquity piece. I mean, I should do it just because I want to see how the whole thing works.
Yeah. So when I looked at these numbers yesterday, the highest traffic, like top five,
Yep.
was a couple of gateways that were in New York and New York City area.
Okay.
And then in Houston, there was like the Space Flight Center. So like high tourist visiting area.
Okay.
And those sort of ranked among the highest, and they were doing about $100 a day worth of carrier offload.
Okay.
Um, it's it's kind of, am I doing this number? 200 gigs, about
Carry the one. Yeah.
3,800 connections. Like, yeah,
Dang.
it's a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the opportunity is really there if you are running this Ubiquity hardware in your office, in your shop, like whatever, being able to activate that, it makes the proof of coverage stuff insignificant, which is really an interesting angle. Like this is that crossover inflection point that we've been kind of looking for on the IoT side is kind of already starting to happen on the mobile side.
Yeah. 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 I mean, speaking of the IoT stuff, let's see. I haven't seen anything more from the Lone Star folks who had taken over from 1663. I got to talk to Tommy and see what's shaking there. But for whatever reason, the past week or so, I've started thinking like, oh, I should do more with IoT, like get back into the IoT nerdery. And I go back and forth. I got, oh, Jesus. Jay,
Don't start with that.
this guy. It's in the can, Jay. It's in the can.
To be
Um,
clear, I was talking about a leaderboard here for
yeah.
carrier offload. So
Yeah.
yeah, that list is 1,600 gateways long. So it
Yeah.
goes down from
We
there.
haven't seen Bobby
Yeah.
in a while. That was probably Bobby gaming the network at his house. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a hot minute. Yeah, I was thinking I should get back into the IoT stuff and just play around with it again because it's such a fun thing to do. And like I said, I go back and forth in this because it is complicated and it takes up a ton of my time to figure out something that an actual nerd could get done in like 30 minutes. It takes me 6 hours, but super fun to play around with. And watching the Dune analytics board, I haven't seen the actual switchover happen yet. It looks like the Nova Labs folks are still right at the top. And I don't know if that naming convention will switch on Dune, and I should just think of Nova now as Lone Star, or if it's something different. But pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
I just learned we can push data directly into Dune. So I can take that well-known list and do a GitHub action. So it just automates the whole thing instead of us manually updating those names.
Okay,
It's
let's
on the
see.
to-do list.
All right, yeah, that's right. It's somewhere on there. Is there a YouTube video on how to do the Ubiquity Passpoint? Juju, this is presumably for data. I don't know if there's a
That's a
YouTube.
good point. So I'm gonna throw a bunch of swag out there for people to do this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I've got a Keenan knows this. I've got a garage full of helium and helium stuff. Um, so
Yeah, I got
uh,
got
yeah,
stickers and
the sticker
patches. Yeah.
the stickers is just the start of it.
Yep.
But we want to see people remember back in the validator days, like it was like very complicated, get the stuff running. So a couple people made videos. I did a video. Um, I want to start seeing people do that for the Ubiquiti hardware, for their Cisco hardware, for their Aruba hardware. Like there's a bunch of stuff out there that is passpoint capable and should be able to handle this protocol. It's a little rocky because we're in this alpha stage and like the onboarding stuff needs to be included too. But if people start doing docs contributions, YouTube videos, like even like a 10-second, like, hey, I unlocked this and I'm, doing the thing, like I try to get some stuff out to them.
I'm going to say that that
Probably
should be something that the mobile working group should have some portion of mobile tokens, and they should build grants for that. And
they can pay me for it. Yeah.
yeah, I think they
Yeah.
already pay you for that. But yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, I probably kind of lock most of that to US folks, but you can
Okay.
actually go do this Ubiquiti stuff anywhere right now. This isn't necessarily locked to US only, which is also kind of an exciting little sneak.
Oh, that is like it. That's an interesting point, and I kind of skim past that because I'm American, and obviously there's only one country in the world that matters to me. Um, Saying that facetiously, my Euro homies. But you could so if Daniel over at Hotspotty in Portugal has Ubiquiti set up, he can turn on the Wi-Fi part of it and basically make
Mhm.
anyone in what I forget what city he's in, if he's in Porto or something else, Lisbon.
Yeah.
It's like anyone passing by the coffee shop that he's in or he's got this thing set up can just jump on Helium and he'll get the mobile tokens from those people using that. Is that am I getting that right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. But it is very much an alpha thing today. He's not going to get tokens yet.
Right.
It's only going to be Helium Mobile, but generally, yeah, as progresses, that's the idea.
Yeah. And I think I mean this it was funny because this was in the announcement and that seemed like the single biggest piece of news out there and it was like point three, it was the bullet point three on the announcement. I was like, huh. The we've been getting
Yep.
asked forever for worldwide coverage and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's worldwide, here you go. But that's like less important
Yeah.
than
The reason I think the Helium Mobile team didn't really stand with that as the biggest point is because it also takes a carrier to really see traffic. It's like, sure, somebody could come and visit that's got a, whatever SIM, and then you'd hit them. But um, the bigger move is going to be like unlocking local carriers to like really push traffic there.
got it. Okay. That's fair. I mean, I still think it's fucking bigger news and it should be at the top, but that's me. That's maybe
Yeah.
like my helium centric, crypto centric thing first. And I know we'd have to involve these carriers in this. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the idea of DePINs having to we hit this a little bit, but I wanted to speed through it before because I thought we were going to be tight on time. Is that DePINs should post their revenue? Um, I think I know where you stand on that as far as they should, but is there anything in there that you're like, yeah, there's a nuance to that maybe they don't need to early on, or it's not that big of a deal?
Um, I mean, I think the thing that's interesting here is to start splitting this in different ways. Because like I've never really considered like hotspot onboards to be revenue, right? Some people in some projects do. Um, like putting on a service provider on the mobile network is like $250,000 or some crazy number. Like it's actually like impossible to like you have to go like OTC buy all of those tokens, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and including that in the protocol revenue would just be silly. Like that's not what the network is for. It's just a security factor and all of that. Um, and so I've seen some projects be like, oh, we just onboarded X, Y, or Z, and we've just got these crazy numbers in protocol revenue. And it's well, you know, yeah,
Okay.
sure, maybe that's like a step in the direction, but
So as long as
yeah.
they're transparent about what it is, I think that's fair.
Oh
If they're
yeah.
like, yeah, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Okay, so instead of them saying this is protocol revenue, maybe they say this is onboarding revenue. Like, and so everybody knows, oh, cool, we're getting a bunch of folks onboarding. Great, that's good news. A step in the right direction. But overall,
Yeah.
it's not what we want as far as usage for a network.
Yeah. Like if we look at our like Dune data credits thing for the Helium IoT side, there's no OUIs, there's no dev adder stuff in there. Like it's never been a part of it on the L1 or the L2 to track that as part of it. We definitely track it,
Yeah,
and we can like report on it, but that's not the thing that's on the like data credit usage chart.
yeah, yeah. Hey, have you heard anything from Blockchain Association about the Capitol Hill piece? I saw that come up a couple times on X. Do you know any of the specific points they're going to make, or have you seen the presentation, or you got any inside dope on that?
I I mean, Scott's there, so like
Cool.
yeah, foundation is there. I haven't had a sync with him exactly what he's pitching and all of that stuff, but
Okay.
I know the standard stuff, which is like it's bipartisan. People need connectivity. We're able to reach a bunch of people that aren't otherwise covered. This is an opportunity to scale. We can go deploy these things faster than anybody else. Like there's a bunch of like really important angles when you think about take away all the crypto stuff, like just talk about connectivity and like technology there. It's a really important approach. And then of course the crypto is the incentive, it's the mechanism to like drive all this stuff. So
Yeah.
I think builds a really compelling story. Hivemapper, Render, all these other folks. I don't know if Render's there, but um, they all add to that narrative in a really important way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice that hopefully the Gov sees that this is not just one company.
Yep.
Let's see, Ed Blue. So this is a little bit more topical. Starlink to Helium mobile deployments in response to the hurricane. And I've seen a buy posting a bunch about this. Keenan says working on a kit for this. So Keenan, is this Helium Foundation is working on a kit for this, which I can't imagine is true, or Helium Mobile, or you, or the great city of Canada? I cannot fucking help
So
but give him a hard time about Canada.
yeah, we're getting one kit shipped out to somebody that has a capacity to go deploy one of these access points, and then we're going to try and get all this carrier offload loaded in
Yeah.
so that people can like get connected. Right now, we're hearing these stories where it's like it's super cool. Apple has satellite now, so you can send out a text message, and that's been, I think, really impactful for all of these folks that have no electricity, no water,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
or,
It's a big deal.
trying to like keep the thing alive. Um, and so, yeah, the more we can do to sort of help these communities bounce back a bit and tell people that they're still there, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be from everything that I've heard, like there's a very tragic event. Like a lot of people have died. Like there's been massive damage to cities.
Yeah.
Um, so
No, it's good to see. I mean,
yeah,
it.
so we're doing what we can to sort of get some more connectivity out there in any way we can. And this is just we're going to go put it out there and see how it works.
Yeah, I think that's rad, and I think that's probably the best way to do it is to start off with where Keenan is saying like, "Hey, I'm just going to do this on my own, see if I can put together a kit." I think Abai is doing the same thing,
Yep.
where he's like, "Hey, I'm just doing this on my own." So I think that stuff is pretty cool. It is interesting to me how we're starting to equate connectivity with survival, right? Where we
Hmm.
think of, and this is me being an asshole, where my area hasn't been impacted, and maybe it would be way more important if I couldn't talk to my mom or dad. But I'm just like, fuck, we lived for 2 million years without talking to anyone further than where we could yell. And all of a sudden, and I'm being an asshole about this, but all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, if I can't get on the internet, like that affects my quality of life. It's like,
Abaya's talk at Breakpoint just what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
yeah,
I don't know, at times, yeah, 2 weeks ago. But he defined connectivity as like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like you need shelter, you need water, and you
yeah,
need connectivity.
yeah,
Like, and that's kind of that is a bit of the world that we live in today. Like
yeah,
this is such a resource for us.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like this is Travis's how many phone numbers I have in memory now. Like I can remember my old house phone number from when I was 10 more than I don't think I know any other phone number other than my wife's, my own, and then my phone number from when I was 10. Where it used to be like, oh yeah, this is, Billy's number and Tommy's number and Jimmy's number and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I barely remember my own number, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So connectivity isn't a luxury anymore; it's a necessity. I guess it depends what you're doing or you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to work and make money on the internet, then yeah, of course you have to hook into the thing. Um,
Yeah. And I'll say for anyone that's watching, like if you know people that are doing disaster response or, have connections with these like Team Rubicons and like
mhm.
FEMA, whatever it is, like find me in DMs. Twitter's probably the best space. Just go like tag me and tell me what's going on. And we can try to figure out how to get you set up. If you already have a Helium mobile hotspot, we could try to figure out how to like, get the emergency response layer in there so that carrier offload happens, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Or yeah, hit up Keenan. He's probably a better resource for this stuff, but
interesting. Okay, so I've got
I'll help where I can.
one of my buddies might actually be doing disaster response. She does jet ski rescue stuff, and she did a ton of work in Katrina and Harvey. I don't know that they need it as much now. I think the flooding kind of came through and then went back down, so jet skis aren't as useful. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's and then Travis has always been super good about just like disaster preparedness. So the whole thing, whoops, is I think I turned off the wrong thing there. The whole thing is yeah, is interesting to see like how do you prep for this stuff. And I saw on X someone was saying like, oh, people are buying Starlink just to have backup. But I think Starlink's a couple $100 a month. I don't think that is worth it for me to have backup.
I
A couple $100 a
think
month
there's like a $50 a month plan or something like that, but
that you can turn
that's
on.
still a little bit of a chunk for I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how well it works if you just like need to turn it on really quickly versus like if you have to have a recurring subscription.
Yeah,
Maybe somebody with Starlink could tell me, but
yeah. We gotta get
us,
Elon on the show. Like, hey, dog,
yeah.
come talk about defense, you crazy fuck.
No, that would be a fun show. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I feel like Elon just he hasn't discovered DePIN because like this feels like given
the
everything that I see that guy tweet about, like it's just like the perfect like kind of, you know,
yeah,
thing for your brain to noodle on.
yeah,
So
yeah. Could
uh,
could be super cool. I mean, and I guess the other funny part is that his products are already being used in deepens. If you look at DIMO, I think their
mhm,
largest fleet is the Teslas, because you can just turn it on and
right.
be like, oh yeah, I can earn DIMO. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, pretty cool to see that stuff there. Let's see what else is going on my side. I think the Onocoy stuff I haven't gotten. So I've got this very general plan. I think we might have talked about it a little bit last time, and I forget if you were on last time when we talked about it. But I think I'm going to go take some crypto, and I'll probably talk to a couple different projects and have them donate some pieces, whether it's a miner or just some of their crypto, and put it onto a wallet, and then make that a hardware wallet. Hammer it out on metal, and bury that somewhere like 6 inches deep, and then use the Onocoy base station and rover to give exact coordinates for that, and say, if you can get millimeter accuracy, you're going to go win this thing. And then I'll go put it somewhere where it's just going to be a general pain in the ass to get to.
Hmm.
And I think there's some cool opportunities to do like a bunch of treasure hunt stuff for that. So that's,
Yeah. I like the idea of geocaching, but like centimeter accuracy geocaching.
yeah,
Like, because like a lot of the geocaching today is like, get to this spot and then go like on a, wild goose chase trying to find the little button or box or whatever that's hiding
yeah.
somewhere around there. Um, that'd be interesting. And you said dig holes, so I feel like all of the entropy people are just
Oh
gonna
my
like
God,
go
don't
nuts
fucking
for you
bring
now
us.
too.
Yeah, they'll love that shit. They swarmed us last time or whatever. Was it swarm? There's some fucking cool guy term for it, but yeah,
Yeah. Um,
raid.
I just sent you a link in the what is the Ecamm chat here. It's one
Oh,
other thing that I wanted to talk about, which
let me see if I can
is
find it.
yeah,
Stand by.
um,
Let me put my glasses on. Interview
slash
chat.
figuring out how to even share it. Maybe I
Oh
can
yeah,
share
Helium
this.
Geek IoT coverage. Okay.
Yeah.
EMT. Let me see if I can get this in here.
So this is
Helium.
the other thing we showed off this Monday on the IoT working group. And so, we've been working with uh,
Maybe we can get that over there.
Bari, Ryoba, Helium Geek.
There we go.
See if I can,
Okay.
let me see if I can actually just share the now. Window, Chrome tab. Yeah, let's do this way.
Oh, and you're gonna try and share. Okay. How do we do that? Oh, we did that. Let me know when you're ready because I think I have that set up, but I don't want to accidentally share your screen in whatever
I think you
top
can share
secret.
because I'm just doing a Chrome tab. So yeah, nothing
Mm,
top secret in here.
all right. Video source will be Joey's screen. Oh yeah, cool.
So I want to explain a little bit of what's going on here.
Yep.
Explorer for us has always been like draw a pin on the map where there's a hotspot.
Yep.
And then that evolved into like draw a pin on the map where there's a non-gaming active and online hotspot, right? We've
Yep.
always sort of been doing this like evolution and trying to like show people what the real coverage of Helium is. Uh, and when I'm talking to roaming partners, members of the board at the Lore Alliance, folks like that, it's like I do a lot of hand waving around like, oh, our redundancy is incredible, our coverage in cities is incredible. Um, but you can't really understand that until you go and like put a mapper on the ground and start walking around and be like, oh yeah, I get it. This starts to help visualize what that story actually is. So the thing that we're looking at here is DIMO macarons go drive around, they send uplinks to hotspots, and we can get the record for that data moving through the hotspot. We then index all of those hotspots that have witnessed data from those macaron devices. We do an RF model for each of those indexed hotspots, and then we compare where those uplinks happened from the car and make sure that it fits that RF model. And so we throw out everything that is like a misassert or like, strange, right? And then we take all of the remaining stuff, glue it all together, and you get effectively a real world, like true RF model of what the Helium network coverage looks like. Um, and so with all of this, you can start to say like there's like redundancy of 131 gateways in a particular hex. You can generally expect to see an RSSI of -80. Um, and we can do
Hmm.
this for every hotspot on the network every single night. Um, so this is basically the most real-time representation of Helium coverage that we have
What
today.
the fuck is going on with France, Joey? Get the
Fran- So,
Tell the
and so
Frenchies to
this,
get their shit together. And Wales.
yeah, so yeah, so this is part of the story here, which is like there could be two things happening. One, there's no hotspots there, which may be the case with France. Or two, nobody with a DIMO macaron has driven through there. So we don't have any source of truth to say like this is working or this isn't. And so we are generally like expecting and hopeful to see this map continue to grow as we collect more data and are able to validate more of those hotspots that are out there. Um, but
Huh.
straight inside of Paris, yeah, great coverage. Somebody's got a demo macaron there.
Yep.
There's other maps that Helium Geek has put together that show the number of macarons that are recording through all of these devices. Like this has been a long going thing. There's like 3 prototypes of this getting up to the point where it is today. But it's at the point today where we're excited to kind of show this off. Oh yeah, see some San Diego.
Let's go check out my
Yeah,
hometown. Ooh,
yeah,
that's fancy how fast that is.
it's pretty quick. And this is live. Like we're
Damn.
not hiding this right now, so you can go poke around here too. But
What's going on under the
um,
water? How is that possible? Is there someone mapping the water? Or am I missing
uh,
something
so
here?
so yeah, the part you're missing is like somebody drives down, Mission Beach, and it's going to ping a bunch of hotspots.
Yep.
And so we start to have a source of truth for where those uplinks should fit in an RF model. But then we interpolate that and we draw out the rest of that RF model. So this is all modeled coverage, but with this sort of backbone of mapping data.
Got it. And this is not just a one-time thing to Jay's point. This is
This is always happening. If you have a demo macaron in your car and you're driving around, you're contributing, part of this layer.
all right, post this link, please. There you go, Travis.
So deploy more macarons is always my statement. I'm a big fan of those. You probably heard me say that a couple of times, and this is part of that reason why.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Huh, and I mean the thing updates pretty quickly. We're all expecting San Francisco to be saturated.
it's quite, yep. Oh,
Okay.
so one other little thing that folks will probably discover. Oh, probably shouldn't click on that hex, but a lot of 360 gateways there.
Oh, that's
Uh,
it.
but but each of these dots that show up is one of the gateways that's providing the coverage to that first hex that I clicked on. And then we can actually dive in and see the individual RF models for each of these hotspots. So it gives us another means to sort of cross-verify. Um, there's another map that will show all of the uplinks that, like I mentioned, which is also sort of a helpful tool. And so we'll probably glue a bunch of that stuff together in the revamp of Explorer. That'll be the ultimate presentation layer of this stuff.
Travis is fucking with you.
It's
Yeah,
360 gateways providing coverage in. It's not 360 gateways,
in one place.
providing. Yeah. So each of these dots is one of the gateways that's providing
Yep.
coverage to that first little dot that I clicked on.
Got it. Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's. Can you take a look at Austin? I think Travis had asked for that. We might as well do
Yeah.
Texas. We've done California. We skipped past New
Uh-oh.
York. We're going the voting thing. I don't know if
Oh
you
boy.
saw
I
the
better get.
debate last night while you're finding this thing, but I'll tell you this: I don't care what side you're on. Everybody's got their own side. But I really appreciated how the two uh, contestants, the two debaters, were just polite to each other. It was a nice change. It's like, hey,
That,
you may not agree with
that's
that guy,
what
may not like that guy, but I liked how they were polite.
that I didn't watch it, but my partner did, and that was her comment this morning. She's like, it was really cute when they were like agreeing with each other, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah. They like,
we all want to hear a little bit of that right now because everything's been so divisive. So
yeah.
I'll have to catch up on some of that.
Oh, Austin's
Yeah,
got.
Austin looking good.
Okay, and so when you click
Um,
on any one of the hexes, you then see all of the hotspots that are providing coverage for that hex.
yep. And then you can sort of do this dive in and get a little bit more of a like individual view.
Yeah.
Um, and this is certainly going to get refined over time. Like there could be some models that are a little over aggressive, a little under aggressive. But it for today is giving a really, really solid picture of what this looks like.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool to see.
Yeah. Dallas, wild. Um, yeah, I think the first screenshot we sort of leaked out here was like sort of the northeast, and it all just looks like a storm coming through. It's a big
And
old
it is funny
IoT
to
cloud.
see where there's just not coverage, where it's in the mountains or there's places people don't drive. So
Yeah, and I feel really strongly about taking the conservative approach here. There could very well be coverage there, but if we can't represent that in a way where somebody that goes and buys that device off Amazon, has a good experience, like,
hmm
your WeatherXM owner, like whatever that is, um, I'd rather them not buy it and, not go have the bad experience than, yeah, it's like this stuff has to like be trusted. And so that's the approach.
yeah. Oh, we
Yeah,
got
I don't,
8 minutes left.
I
Let's
don't,
take a look. Is anyone there? Travis, what have you been
uh,
doing? Good work there.
oh, there's a little bit in South Africa here.
Yeah,
So
enjoy.
somebody's got a macaron and they're driving it around. So we're getting that data.
So this is macarons only. It's not like I can walk around on my mapper and put my little place on the map if I don't have a macaron.
Uh, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the layer that we're including today. Like we could expand this out to start including like uplinks from WeatherXM, anywhere where we have like a pretty good source on a GPS ping with an uplink. We could
Okay.
start to, throw that stuff in there.
Yeah, pretty rad. I mean, hopefully this is part of what they're presenting at Capitol Hill. I see Mexico City is pretty well covered.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
looks like Puerto Rico's there. Who's the dude in Puerto Rico I see all the time on X who's driving around crushing it?
Hmm. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But I mean,
But
certainly that place, because of the crypto side, but also just in general, seems like they've got, yeah.
yeah, looking good. So yeah, go poke around this. It's going to continue to evolve, but I think a couple of people already noted this is going to be a really helpful resource when they're talking about deploying solutions, things like that. Neil was really excited about it. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think the other piece there is, I'll turn it off for now unless you want it back on. Is just seeing if you're going to deploy a sensor, you may also need to just deploy a gateway, and then now you've got coverage. But I know in the early days it was just super hard to tell. I'm sure WeatherXM is going to be pretty pumped about that. And then how difficult was that to do with DIMO? Is that something that you just connect with Monos over at WeatherXM and you're like, hey guys, let's add your stuff to the map? Or is that a little bit more involved in that than that?
For me, it's that easy. For Bari, it's less easy. So Helium Geek has been doing the heavy lifting here, and I have to
Got
give a
it.
lot of credit to them for ingesting and sort of organizing and scoring all of this data.
And are they doing
Um,
that on a Helium grant, or is he just doing that because he's a rad dude? Or she? I
it's
don't actually
you
know if
can
it's a guy or girl.
as a guy, and I don't know how big his team is. I think he's maybe got some help, but uh, it's you can think of it as a grant. We basically did it a little bit more like he was a contractor,
Mm-hmm.
which is just like a minor distinction. But this is the Helium Foundation paying him directly.
Cool. Yeah, God knows
Yeah,
I've had that same deal with them, and that's a good one. In the
yeah,
past, not right now, but
yeah,
yeah, cool to see. I always worry in this spot, or not worry, but I always focus as greedy as it can seem. Like, hey, make sure we are paying the folks who are doing the work to help promote the network or to help provide services for the network. I think that stuff has to be. We have to kind
yeah.
of put that
And
first at this point, is we're no longer at a point where it's like, oh yeah, I'm making enough HNT in my thing that it doesn't matter, which is where I think a lot of us started. Now it's got to be like, hey, I've got a real job. I could do my real job, or I could do this. Like, give me a reason to do the other, to do this.
mhm. Yeah, and this one it's a really easy one because I gave a presentation at a team offsite, I think 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that was almost exactly this, minus the demo part. I was doing
Yep.
it with the mapper data.
Yep.
So when Bari came to us and he's like, "Hey, I want to do this," and like, here's a map of demo data and all the hotspots we've seen. It's like, wow, that's a lot of data.
Yeah.
Um, it was a very easy thing to say, like, let's push this thing forward, and we've basically been 100% aligned through the whole process. So it's been
Nice.
really easy to work with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Is Travis is seeing if, and I'll have to see if I can get any of the demo crew on here, Yev or Alex or whoever, to talk about, hey, can I put a demo unit on my boat? I'm sure the
Mm.
initial answer is gonna be like, well, you can, but that's not what we want. But I mean, they are mobility. It doesn't say it's not deco. It's not digital infrastructure for cars. It's mobility. So
Yeah. You could have the first boat NFT on the demo Polygon network.
yeah, yeah, lots of cool options.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Joey, anything else you want to hit while we're on here? I think that wraps up most of the deep in news. We got to talk a bunch about helium while you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of helium stuff. I think I'll just throw out the reminder that people should go play with this ubiquity thing,
Yeah.
and make contributions there. Hit me up. We'll get you swag. That's just kind of a thing I want to do. So,
Cool.
and also if you're in the hurricane impacted area, let's make some stuff happen there.
Okay. Oh, I should have did a shout out for Flywheel Systems down at the bottom right of the screen. Is he does all the graphics for this now, and I should have had like a hurricane graphic. It's like, hey, if you're in the hurricane, you should reach out. But that's it. All right, dude. Thanks for coming on. Super good to see you. I will see you next week. And in the meantime, rock and roll. If you guys have any questions, jump on X. Usually Joey and I are both on there. And we'll do the best we can to answer them. So that's it.
Yeah,
All right, buddy.
cool. Thanks, Nick.
Let's
Have a good one.
wrap.